In today's Leeds news, Leeds on Ramazani's future, Bijol standout stats for starting call, injury boost for Palace away, Leeds watch Peter Hauge, extended Elland Road development impact and Rumour Mill update on Troy Parrott. Hey folks, welcome to the Leeds View for Friday, the 13th of March with your Leeds United news. Happy Friday, you've made another week. Congratulations, well done. It's getting a bit quiet around the place at the moment, but there's some nice updates today that tie into the game at the weekend, as well as some updates on some of the Rumour Mill stuff, which we are keeping track of over the course of the off season. Also, you can check out last night's podcast. Myself and Andrea Russo had a deeper dive into the Leeds United loanees, where they are in their loan development so far this season, their situation heading into this summer, as well as the contract situations as well. So you can check that out. I'll link it at the end of today's video. You can check that out if you want it. We'll start off with Leeds United on Largi Ramazani's future. We've talked an awful lot about Largi Ramazani this week, and we did say it was likely to be the case that the loanees would be far more in the front pages of Leeds news when it came to this stage of the season. And Isaac Johnson in Leeds Life has done a really nice piece in trying to round off the Largi Ramazani situation. Largi himself has been speaking with the media in Spain this week, and he was asked about his immediate future, and he said the following: "I'm at Valencia to work. We'll see about the future." It was a fairly short and a fairly non-committal response from Largi Ramazani, which is probably sensible at this stage of a season for him not to say anything out of tune and not upset anybody on either side of the fence. If he does try and get a permanent move to Valencia, he's not going to want to say anything that's going to jeopardise that. And also, if he is going to come back to Leeds and play a future in Leeds, then he has to be careful what he says there. So a smart move from Ramazani, but from Leeds' standpoint, they didn't put an option to buy in Ramazani's deal, which says that Leeds saw some sort of value in him, whether that's on the pitch or monetarily over a longer period of time, still remains to be seen. But Leeds director Robbie Evans did speak about Largi Ramazani's situation in the summer and described him as wildly talented. And he said the same about Mateo Joseph, and he said this at the time: "They're both wildly talented players who need the minutes, and Largi also has no buy option because we insisted that we have the option to bring him back to the club. Largi was not getting the minutes that he needed last season." Evans also said that the club trusted Carlos Corberán due to the connections they've got there and Valencia to look after Largi Ramazani this season and to give him what he was needed in order to continue his development. He's 25 years of age now. He's about to face into his peak years, but Evans also said that Ramazani's future was at Leeds United, and that could depend on the manager situation as well. It can also depend on the relationship between the manager and the player and what Ramazani wants himself. But Leeds are not said to have changed their stance on Ramazani at this point, and he is expected to return to the club in the summer, and I'm assuming it'll be reviewed at that point. And if Daniel Farke does decide to shift his focus back to his preferred 4-2-3-1 formation, which has been indicating recently that he might like to do, then all of a sudden the wingers conversation comes into the forefront an awful lot more, and maybe there's a future for Largi Ramazani as part of that. The trust element is there as well. We need to see what that looks like, but at the moment, from a Leeds hierarchy perspective, they expect Ramazani to come back to the club in the summer, and they'll review it at that point. Let's move on and talk about Jakub Bijol. Jakub Bijol's position has been a major talking point over the last 7 days as we get ready for the weekend's action against Crystal Palace. And as we covered earlier this week, there have been increasing calls from pundits and fans and ex-players to get Jakub Bijol back in the starting lineup for Leeds United. And it's not just people's sentiment. There's also some data that's come out now that backs up this claim. And big shout out to Big Lou for pointing people in the right direction when it came to this one. The stat coming out backs up the claims, and it's pretty strong. And it's no shade on James Justin. He's been excellent for Leeds and not even taking him into consideration at all in this. But when Jakub Bijol has started for Leeds, Leeds have only lost 25% of those matches. When he hasn't played for Leeds, Leeds have lost 53% of those games. Now, given the fine margins at this point of the season, and Leeds needing every single advantage they can get to try and make sure they stay safe in the Premier League, it's a really big call and important that Leeds get their best players and their best lineup on the pitch. And again, we talked about it during the week, and we talked about the podcast as well. Bijol was a mainstay of the Leeds side during that really positive run in the middle of the season, and Daniel Farke has got some really big decisions and really big calls to make over the next couple of weeks. And before we get to the Manchester United away game, Leeds have got 2 games where picking up some points there, given what the sides around us are playing against, could be really, really important to giving Leeds a jump towards the end of the season and making sure we're safe in the Premier League. So it's a massive call, and looking at the comments this week, most people are in the same boat of believing that Jakub Bijol does deserve to get back into the Leeds United side, and we are better within minute. But it's a tough call. There's depth in that squad. James Justin's not been poor by any stretch of the imagination. He's been very, very good and very reliable. So, yeah, tough call for the manager. Let's move on and talk about an injury boost ahead of Crystal Palace. Some good news coming out in terms of team news. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, as we know, spoke to CBS Sports during the week, and he was pictured in training yesterday, and he said earlier this week that he was good to go. But another big boost has come out yesterday as well, and it's Noah Okafor, who has been pictured back in training, and he shared a one-word update on his Instagram side, which simply read, back. And it's a really important part of the season for Leeds to start getting some of their players back. Leeds nearly have a full, healthy squad at this point. Sean Longstaff is looking sharper and sharper every single game that we see him playing in. Dan James is looking very close to full capability at this point as well. And now having Okafor and DCL fit and flying out, and Lucas Mecha fit as well, is really, really important. It gives Daniel Farke plenty of options and strengthens that bench and the depth of that squad and gives Leeds a real chance coming into the next couple of games. Let's move on and talk about a potential signing in the summer and someone Leeds have been keeping a close eye on. Bodo Glimt attacker Jens Petter Hauge has been linked with Leeds during the January transfer window, and according to reports, Leeds have sent scouts to watch the Norwegian side again this week and very much keeping a close eye on Jens Petter Hauge. According to the report, Leeds are keeping an eye on him, but also their striker Kasper Hogh. Several Premier League sides were also said to have scouts in attendance of the game against Sporting Lisbon. Leeds were one of those, and Hauge does tick some boxes for what Leeds might be looking for this summer. He can play in multiple positions, which would definitely benefit the side. He can play on either wing, he can play narrow, and he has played an awful lot as a number 10 as well. He's got 6 goals and 2 assists so far this season in the Champions League, which is hell of a return, and they've been doing really, really well so far this year. Leeds have also kept an eye on Danish striker Kasper Hogh, who's got 5 goals in the Champions League this season, and he's an interesting one to keep an eye on because he does tick some of the Leeds striker boxes that they looked at last season. 25 years of age, coming into his peak years, and he's 6'1" in height. The general belief around the place is that Leeds will look to try and box off a number 10 and a striker this summer. Their positions Leeds had a look at during the January transfer window, which means they'll probably likely look again in the summer, and these are 2 to keep an eye on. It's not the first time Jens Petter Hauge has been mentioned with Leeds, but there will be plenty of competition and clubs keeping an eye on him. It'll be a difficult one to get done if they can. And also the interesting one is Kasper Hogh. He's not capped by Denmark just yet, but he's had a really, really strong season, and as I say, he is that big, strong number 9 that Leeds have been looking at bringing in over the last 2 seasons. If they couldn't get Strand Larson and they're looking for that mould of striker, maybe Kasper Hogh is one just to keep a little bit of an eye on. But we'll keep track of them and we'll find out at the end of the year if these are true or not. Move on. As part of the Elland Road development, Leeds have also looked at redeveloping the area around Elland Road, and 30 acres of land around Elland Road has now been sold as part of the larger Elland Road development plan. Leeds board member Pete Lowy spoke to Don't Go to Bed Just Yet recently, and he said that that part of Leeds, the South Leeds area, has been cut off from investment due to the motorway being built, and they're looking as part of the Elland Road development to try and revitalise that area and bring more investment into it. As part of the joint venture between the council, the football club and the Lowy family, the former school site will now be developed into 2,000 new homes, a community centre, AstroTurf pitches and a regular sports pitches with a medical centre included as well. It's one part of the joint venture that Lowy hopes will bring more investment into that part of Leeds, but also from a Leeds United perspective, also bring more people in and around the redeveloped Elland Road, which will keep people at the ground for longer and spending more money there, which will hopefully bring in more revenue for the football club in the longer term. £12 million has already been spent so far on the Elland Road redevelopment, and shovels in the ground are expected in May once this season concludes. The markings are already there. It's going to be an interesting couple of months ahead for Leeds United, and apparently, taking at the word at this point, it has nothing to do with Leeds United's divisional status come next season, so we'll have to wait and see. Let's move into the rumour mill territory and an update on Troy Parrott. I mean, it's an update on a rumour, but it is an update nonetheless. But as we know, Leeds United have been linked repeatedly with Troy Parrott. At this point, it's any day that ends in a Y, and Parrott's got 26 goals in what has been an exceptional season for the Irish striker, and Leeds have been labelled as one of the front-running clubs along with West Ham United to try and get him this summer. There are loose reports that claim that there are some other top European clubs that are now said to be interested in Troy Parrott, as well as his former side Tottenham Hotspur, all of it due to his really exceptional season that he is having so far this season, not just from a club perspective, but he has been vital in Ireland's quest to try and get into the World Cup this summer. Leeds' survival is labelled as the number 1 area that needs to be ticked off first before Leeds have any chance of bringing a player like Troy Parrott into the club this summer. West Ham and Spurs also fall into that exact same bracket. and the fact that there are now other bigger European clubs, bigger in terms of establishment in Champions League football, it could get a bit more tricky to do. The interesting part with this one is, if you look at the strikers, and again, they're all rumours at this point, but just to try and lay them all out, of the strikers that have been linked with Leeds so far this season, you've got Troy Parrott, you've got Casper Hogh, you've got Santiago Jimenez, and Promise David. 3 of those 4 tick the standard Leeds United number 9 recruitment boxes. Over 6 foot, coming to their peak years. Parrott isn't in that 6 foot hold up striker bracket. He's very much a second striker or just off the side of a striker. Now, if Leeds decide to go with a 3-4-3 next season, he could fit in quite well in that Noah Okafor, Brendan Aronson role. He's a very busy player, but is very much a second striker and not a striker to lead the line. So he wouldn't be another competition for Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Lucas Meche. He would be a different type of striker. Where the other 3, and the link with Strand Larson in January, would be very much of what Leeds have looked for so far in that target man number 9. So it is an interesting one to keep an eye on. He's been very good. He's consistently linked with the club. Whether it's true or not, we'll find out once the summer window opens. But the better season he has, more clubs that are going to be keeping an eye on him. We'll see what happens with clubs' survival in the Premier League and who can make a move from him. He's also got a World Cup coming up as well, which, fingers crossed, Ireland are in, and he can shine in that for Ireland, but it might make it a bit trickier for Leeds to try and get him at that point. Anyway, folks, that'll be it for the news for this week. We do have the podcast out from last night. Myself and Andrea Russo have a look at the loanees that are out at the moment. You can check that out if you wanted. Their news from the rest of the week is available. And we will be back on Sunday over on bigup.com for the watch along for Leeds and Crystal Palace, as well as the instant match reaction after the game here on YouTube. Have a great rest of your day and your weekend. I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.